on Sugar Spun Run, I'll be showing you how to make my favorite confetti cookies. Hey Sugar Spun Bakers, Sam here, and I am so excited to be sharing another carefully tested, well-researched, and perfected recipe. These super fun cookies are loaded full of sprinkles. They're actually an old recipe from the blog that I'm updating today with just a few really small tweaks to make them completely perfect, addictive, and irresistible. Let's go ahead and get started. Now for incredibly soft and chewy cookies, we are going to start today's recipe with melted butter. Here I have 1 cup of melted unsalted butter. Now before we go any further, it's very important that your butter not be too warm. I like to let mine cool for 10 to 15 minutes before I continue. If I give this a little bit of a stir with my spatula, you can see that the bottom is beginning to turn opaque and it's almost ready to start re-solidifying. This is how I know I'm ready to proceed with the recipe. The next thing we'll be adding is 1 2/3 cup of granulated sugar. Now, if our butter was too warm at this point, it would end up melting our sugar and it would leave us with a greasy cookie dough and cookies that just spread all over the baking sheet while they bake. So make sure your butter is cooled before you get to this point. Now we'll just stir in the butter. Next, we'll add 2 large eggs, and ideally these should be at room temperature. We'll also add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Make sure you stir everything in until it's completely combined. Now set this aside, and in a separate bowl we're going to whisk together our dry ingredients. For today's recipe, you're going to need 3 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 3/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1 teaspoon of salt. Whisk everything together until it's well combined. And then we'll gradually stir our dry ingredients into our melted butter mixture until they're completely combined. I don't recommend adding all of your flour at once, or else you can end up overwhelming your dough and making it difficult for the flour to properly absorb, and you can end up with a dry, crumbly cookie dough, which you shouldn't if this is done properly. All right, now the next key ingredient for today's recipe is nice colorful sprinkles. We will be using 1/3 cup of sprinkles for today's recipe. Today I am using colorful sequin sprinkles, as well as these, I think they're typically called jimmies sprinkles as well. Just stir these in, and you want to get the sprinkles well distributed. All right, now once your cookie dough is prepared, you're going to need to chill this dough for at least 30 minutes in the refrigerator before you bake your cookies. This is going to not only help the flavors develop, but it's also going to keep the cookies from spreading too much on the baking sheet. I recommend covering your bowl with plastic wrap or storing the cookie dough in an airtight container while it's in the fridge. Now once your dough is almost completely chilled, go ahead and get your oven preheating. You're going to want to set it to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. My cookie dough is finished chilling, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the plastic wrap, and I'm just going to scoop the dough by 1.5 tablespoon-sized scoops onto a parchment paper lined baking sheet, and space the cookies at least 2 inches apart so they have a little bit of room to spread. Now, to help make the cookies look a little more nice and uniform, after I've dropped them on the baking sheet, I do like to quickly roll them between my palms, just because this is going to make them bake up a little bit nicer and neater looking when they're out of the oven. All right, now we'll take these over to our preheated oven, where they're going to need to bake for 10 to 12 minutes. Once the cookies are finished baking, the edges may be beginning to turn just a very light golden brown color, and the centers will still appear slightly underbaked. This is fine. You're going to let the cookies cool completely on the baking sheet, and as they cool, they're going to finish baking in the center, and you're going to be left with super soft and chewy cookies. If the edges aren't slightly underdone when they come out of the oven and they're fully baked, then unfortunately your cookies are going to end up a little bit dry. Now, as I said, we're going to let these cookies cool completely on the baking sheet before we enjoy. And that is how you make my favorite confetti cookies. These are super soft, chewy, absolutely delicious, and I'm so excited for you to try them. If you try them out, please leave me a comment and let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Nice slow bend. So good.